Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Horse 2 Cinema Live. Yeah, so it's been a while since I've done a stream, so I figured what I would do is just kind of do a bit of a catch up here. I've done this a couple of times where if I've been a little bit behind on reviews and stuff like that, I'll just talk about films I've seen for the last few months. In this case, I'm really going to be talking about everything I've seen for the year 2024, which includes a lot of big releases that I think everybody's been catching up with. But I think there's a few hidden gems in there that I feel like I'll be able to recommend for people, maybe if they haven't, gotten a huge release yet or anything like that. And I would, yeah, I've really missed doing this. I right now, I'm fairly busy writing essays for school. In the span of like a couple of weeks, I have to write like over 10,000 words. So I'm fairly busy, but I do try to keep the evenings for myself, and so I definitely did want to do something like this. And I would love to chat with you guys in the comments about what you've been watching, and about all the different releases I'm going to talk about. Just let me know, what you've been thinking of them, and we can just chat about whatever. So I've got a couple comments already, and then I will go to my letterbox. We got Josh saying, "Hey Jackson, hey Josh, how's it going, man? Yeah, really good to see you." And he says, "Great to see you back as well." Yeah, no, for sure. It's good to be back. Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, so here's what I'll do. So I will go to my letterbox page and share the screen. 1 second. Sharing the screen here. Oops, that's not it. 1 second. I've been I think this lets you know that it's been a while. There we go. Here's Letterboxd. That does it. Cool. Yeah. So I took my rankings off, so this is in no particular order. No spoilers for like the end of the year or anything of like top 10 or anything like that. I just ordered this in chronological order of when I saw them, and I'm going to start with a couple of films that I actually caught at the London International Film Festival, and then I can get on to stuff that was actually released this year and stuff. But yeah, I definitely wanted to talk about. I did talk about this a little bit in my end of the year video, but there's this film called The Settlers, directed by Felipe Galvez, who I believe is from Chile. And this is a really cool, like, sort of revisionist Western, much in the mode of like something like The Great Silence, like a little bit like Sergio Corbucci films, a little bit, maybe less in like the kind of spaghetti Western sort of fun style of Django. But I guess Django's not really super like, it doesn't have a huge like sort of fun energy, but it's definitely got a lot more like kind of overt genre style to it. This is much more, I think the tone of this is closer to something like The Nightingale. Maybe not quite as violent. I'm talking about the Jennifer Kent, The Nightingale. But yeah, it's a really, really like bleak story about these sort of cowboys that are kind of hired to explore this land and sort of help colonial exploitation. And it gets really, really violent and messed up. My only issue with it really was pacing. There's a part like towards the maybe like 2/3, 3/4 into the movie where time jumps quite a bit, and it's really kind of jarring compared to what you've seen so far, because most of what you've seen so far has very consistently just sort of kept the same perspective with characters, and so it's a little bit much, I think. But other than that, you can't really tell that this is like an early feature from a director. Like this had a lot of really strong style and control to it. It's gotten pretty good reviews from people who have seen it at festivals, and it's just not that many people have seen it. And as you might be able to see on the screen here, it is on Mubi now. so I just wish more people would check this out. I highly recommend it. As you can see, I gave it 3 stars. It's a pretty strong 3. I honestly, yeah, if I go back to it, maybe even those pacing issues will kind of not be quite as noticeable. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I hope more people check this one out. But yeah, The Settlers, and it's on Mubi. This one, I don't. Has Mubi picked this one up as well? Doesn't look like it, but you can stream it. It looks like on. I guess this is for UK audiences because I'm currently in the UK. But like on Apple, Amazon, Sky, see where you can get it. But this is Samsara, not to be confused with another film called Samsara. That's it's like that one's like an experimental documentary done by the same people that did like Koyaanisqatsi and those movies. This is basically this is from a filmmaker, Lois Patino, and I went to the UK premiere of this at the London Film Festival, and he was there to introduce it. And the fun thing about this was I saw it in IMAX, and it is not what you would normally see in an IMAX movie. That's where it's kind of format tends to be reserved for things like Oppenheimer or Civil War or like these kind of big spectacle, usually genre movies. This is like a total kind of, it's almost like an art installation. It is very, very slow. I think the tone of it, I compared it a little bit at my end of the year video to like a Pitchapong we were skeptical, like something like Memoria. I think you could talk about this with, but I think that there's a cool spin on it that I think ties into why the IMAX format helped a little bit, which is basically that it's about the Buddhist cycle of death and reincarnation. And so you kind of start off in the movie with the style of, like something more like a Pitchapong we were skeptical, but it's you're in kind of the jungle with these Buddhist monks in Laos. And you're just kind of like taking in the scenery of this village, and you kind of follow these young people. Eventually, you kind of transition to one of this, basically this kid's grandma, who's kind of towards the end of her life. And it kind of in the middle of the movie, she dies. And when that happens, you kind of, the camera kind of takes on the point of view of her spirit. And so in that sense, what I was going to compare it to is Gaspar Noé's Enter the Void. It has a very similar premise, but it's not really as like literal or extended as that. It's more basically when she dies, there's a message on the screen that tells you to close your eyes, and then basically there's like this light show that starts, and you start traveling in. It's basically him trying to represent some kind of void of death, essentially. This is not for everyone. This is very much like a very loose, slow cinema kind of, loose narrative sort of thing. I found that experience, that central like 15 minutes where it's that like light show, so incredible. It is kind of funny that it never really tells you like when to open your eyes. From what I remember, you just kind of naturally figure out that you should do it after the light show stops. But it's it's really, really cool. The second half of the film is basically just kind of mirroring the first half, but in a different setting. And in that sense, I found it a little bit repetitive, even though it's still very nice to kind of, I think it still works as well as the first half in a lot of ways. It's just I found it a little bit repetitive, especially given how spectacular that middle section is. But yeah, that's this is not going to play very wide or anything. It's and I'm sure there's people in my audience who this just won't be for you, and that's totally cool. But if you think you are into this kind of, like, if you like the slow cinema movement, if you like these kind of very if you like things that are really out there as far as art house cinema goes, I would suggest giving this a try. Because some people, as you can see in some of these ratings down here, have been really, really taking to it. So yeah, Samsara is that one. I'm going to go to a couple of comments here. Let's see. Josh says, been watching a bunch of movies, seeing The Fall Guy tomorrow. Nice. Yeah, I was talking to Leon because he saw the Fall Guy yesterday, and he actually liked it decently. I think. I wasn't really expecting to like it after seeing the trailer, and I don't like Bullet Train at all. The director's the same director's previous movie. And I don't really like Deadpool 2, so I'm not excited for it. But at the same time, he said it was much better and kind of. I don't know. It sounds kind of cool, and obviously Ryan Gosling is awesome in everything. So yeah, I'll check it out. Wasn't too big on Spaceman. Was kind of baseless with its idea of depression. Tried to be something it wasn't. Yeah, I'll get to Spaceman. I think that might be the next one I'm talking about, or at least in a couple movies. But yeah, I'll talk about it more. But I wasn't huge on it either. Yeah. Settlers is one I will watch next week. It's on movie now. Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited for more people to check it out because I think there's a wide enough appeal to it for people who are into genre stuff. Yeah, definitely. It is pretty violent, and that's why I compared it to The Nightingale, the Jennifer Kent movie. I don't think it's quite as out there. I like that movie is like a rough time for people, especially if you're sensitive to like sexual violence. For sure, there is something I will say there is something like that in The Settlers, from what I remember, and there's kind of a genocide component to it as well, given the like colonial people and their relationship with the natives and the land that they're taking over. But it's pretty violent, and that's definitely by design. I mean, it's the filmmaker is he really wants to interrogate kind of the morality of that history. I think I because when I went to the screening, he was there and he talked about it a little bit. So yeah, that was cool. Yeah. No, again, that's not going to be for everybody, but I enjoy it quite a bit, especially for IMAX. Like, I will just for that central like 15 minutes, I will never forget being in that movie theater with just all those people, and we're all closing our eyes, seeing these like flashes of light. If you're sensitive to like, if you have epilepsy, don't see Samsara. There should be like a warning for that at the start, but yeah. Glad you liked it. I'll find out tomorrow. Yep. Yeah, it's I don't know. I just found it like way too like kind of self-aware and like reveling in its self-awareness a little bit. I and it sucked to see Brad Pitt in a movie like that because he's like a real charismatic movie star, and it just sucked. I just felt like he didn't really have his normal charm in it. The Nightingale is traumatic. Yeah, that is a really rough watch. I love it though. I know some people are really divided about that movie, not just in terms of like it's hard to watch, but some people I think argue that it went too far. I don't think so. I think that's a great movie. But okay. And then we'll go back to sharing the screen here. Okay. Next, I'm going to, of course, talk about some 2024 official releases, not just festival stuff. Let's talk about The Beekeeper. This came out. This was like the January trash action movie that like was kind of a big hit this year. I think bigger than the one last year. I think the one I would compare it to last year is Plane, the Gerard Butler one, which I had a huge blast with watching that in theaters. And this one I think I had even more fun with. I think this is a really, I mean, it's stupid as hell, but it's but it's so much fun. I mean, the setup is great, where it's kind of like a little bit more of like a bozo version of like a John Wick sort of thing, where it's like it's a very personal revenge thing. I won't totally spoil the opening set piece, but essentially, Jason Statham's character works for somebody who is wronged, and he has this past kind of experience with this like mercenary army of people called beekeepers who protect the hive. And they say that they make like bee puns and say protect the hive so many times throughout the entire film. It's lovely. But yeah, but once he initially goes after, like, he settles that initial kind of revenge thing, that initial vendetta really quickly, but then different events that kind of related to it spiral out into this much larger conspiracy that he then has to go hunt down as well. And it is so funny where it ends up going. I could not believe like the direction that they take it in the third act, where I won't spoil it in case anybody in the audience still hasn't seen it. But if you want, an actioner to in January to be, well shot and staged. I think this is it's directed by David Ayer, who did like unfortunately Suicide Squad, but also he's done some other stuff like Fury and some other kind of action movies that are better received, from what I understand. So I think Beekeeper mostly has a really good sense for that. That's all solid, and it's really sincerely performed as well by Jason Statham and really everybody involved. I think Josh Hutcherson is in it, and he plays like this like cryptocurrency obsessed like nepo baby that's kind of on he's kind of intertwined with this conspiracy. That if you like all that stuff combined with just really really stupid kind of plot details, I think this is such a fun time. I think how stupid it is kind of limits it a little bit in my brain. I don't know how often I'll be coming back to something like this, but I watched this on my birthday and I had just like, my God, it was such a, for only giving it 3 stars, I had such a great time with it. I don't get this rating of 2.7. Honestly, I don't know. I think people are a little hard on this one. What did I say in my review? Yeah, vaguely left-wing Death Wish kind of captures it. It's definitely got like the stupid sincere energy of something like Death Wish. But it's a little bit more like modern. I won't get into what I mean by left-wing. It's not like a super political movie either, but it's a fun time. Protect the Hive. Cool. And then I'm going to talk about one of the bigger releases of this year for sure. One that I thought we were initially going to get last year until I think it was delayed because of the strike. And that's, of course, Dune Part 2. So I'm a huge fan of Dune Part 1. One of probably my top like 3 or 4 movies, I would say, in 2021. I've read like a good amount of the novel. I haven't finished it yet, but I enjoy it from what I've read. And this, from what I understand, this is the more difficult to adapt section of the novel, and it's something that we haven't really seen before in terms of. I mean, obviously we had the David Lynch movie in the 80s, and there was, I believe, a miniseries as well. But the David Lynch movie famously was really kind of hampered by the fact that the studio made him put it all into one part, and so he really skips through a lot. not even just like it's not just like he skips through, like character detail. He just skips entire plot details and stuff in the Lynch film, which is not his fault. It's definitely the studio making that decision. In fact, I think Part 1 is actually longer. Denis Villeneuve's Part 1 is actually longer than the entire David Lynch movie, which tries to adapt both parts. So that tells you a lot about how rushed it is. But this one is even longer. This part is like almost 3 hours, I think. But I was blown away by it. I didn't see it in IMAX, and I do want to see if I can see it in IMAX at some point if it's like gonna come back before the Oscars or something. But I did see it in theaters, and it was quite the spectacle in terms of, I mean, everything I thought to do with the worms was really incredible, and just all these. I think also just like compared to Part 1, he comes up with more kind of unique ways to shoot everything. I particularly, I think the sequence on the Harkonnen's planet, Getty Prime, that was gorgeous, where they basically shoot it in an infrared like aggro drift style, but it's like black and white. But the infrared kind of gives everything a more like not like fuzzy, but like what's the word? It's like the slightly blurry, just sort of very like stark sort of look to everything. It's really, really cool. I think what I love about both parts, and I really like about the book from what I've read as well, is that, you know, Dune is kind of a, you know, it's a warning. It has, you know, kind of political themes about putting trust in charismatic political and religious leaders, and it always feels like the characters in the story are kind of walking into a giant trap. You know, I think that's the theme of the novel in a lot of ways, in addition to all the fun kind of action and you know, sci-fi stuff as well. You know, it's basically just it's in a lot of ways it's just Lawrence of Arabia. It's just like a character kind of goes into the desert and falls in love with another culture, but he's also part of these larger plans that he can't really see, and that ends up kind of being his downfall. And I was just curious to see how well they were going to do that part of the story, and I was blown away. I thought and they even make some changes to the novel, which is really my only reservation about it. And that's not to say I don't like the changes. In fact, I do like them, especially related to Chani and Lady Jessica. I think those changes are really interesting and add a lot of cool character depth and kind of like interesting motivation. I'm just curious. When I say it's a reservation, it's just I want to kind of sit with it a little bit more and see how I deal with it on a subsequent viewing. And I've only seen the film once, so that's kind of where I am with it right now. But yeah, this was just great. This was totally worth the wait, not just the like 3 years or 2 years or whatever since the first one came out, but then obviously the additional several months that we had to wait before when the strikes were happening and everything. So yeah, I mean, Denis Villeneuve's killing it. Apparently, I heard the other day that one, of course, he's going to make Dune Messiah, which we need, and I really I think this film, the way it ends, I think would it's going to help, given that Dune Messiah is going to come out. But also, he's making like Threads, basically. Like he's making Denis Villeneuve is making like a nuclear, like basically like what would happen if there was a nuclear war sort of movie. And I'm like, all right, that's I don't even know if I'd want to see him do that, but I'm really curious. So cool director, and obviously, was so glad to see that this was as good as I hoped it was. I'll do one more before I go back to the comments. This was the movie that Josh was alluding to just a second ago, Spaceman, which I didn't really hear a lot about until a little bit before I saw it. It's an Adam Sandler vehicle, directed by, what has this guy done before? Johan Renck. Oh, he's behind the Chernobyl show. Is that true? Is he like the director of it, or yeah, like he's the director of it? Wow, okay, that's crazy, because I've heard that show's great. I haven't seen it, but I did not like this movie very much. This Spaceman. It's a great premise. It's a really awesome setup of basically that this astronaut is really far out in space on a mission, and basically he's kind of back home. His wife wants to leave him, and she's not really sure about how to communicate the message, and NASA are trying to hide it from him because of kind of the danger of him finding out that really troubling information when he's out in space and like a really dangerous mission. It's a very like palpable, believable scenario. The execution of it, especially the way the film goes on, is just so like bizarre, and not in a way that I think works. At one point, like Adam Sandler, who I actually think is decent in the film, he starts like hallucinating, and he starts seeing this spider that he starts talking to, voiced by Paul Dano. So imagine, like, if you haven't seen it, imagine like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, like the Aragog spiders and everything, but it's like voiced by Paul Dano in space. And it's like a really kind of they have these like really like melodramatic, honestly kind of boring conversations, where Paul Dano keeps calling him skinny human. And I was like, I remember being like, if he says that one more time, I'm gonna throw something at the screen, like please stop. And it's, again, the premise is cool, but once it gets into that section of the movie, not only is it kind of tedious, but even like thematically and what it's going for, it's just taking from a lot of other better movies, in my opinion. I mean, like, I definitely thought of Solaris, of like the idea of like when you go out into space, like really deep into space, not only could you maybe physically encounter something that could kind of warp your mind, but it's also that the further out into space you go, the more inward you start to look into yourself. That's kind of the central idea, which is definitely also kind of revisited in a lot of ways in films like Ad Astra, I think, really successfully. But this one just really didn't do it for me, unfortunately. So it's on Netflix if you're curious. I don't think it's a film of total, like, I think there's some merit to it. It's just the execution I thought was weird. I'm gonna check out Rashad's review real quick. I love Rashad. Yeah, I can't disagree. I just forgot of every now and then I got to check out people's yeah, I don't know. The people are funny with their reviews, and I totally agree, Rashad. Yeah, let's see. I've got some more comments here. Josh says Beekeeper is one I haven't seen yet. You might like it, honestly. I don't. I mean, it's definitely not like what I would categorize as your thing per se, but honestly, I think you might like it. It's certainly well done enough that like I think it has a broad appeal, and I think you would probably just appreciate like the stupid directions it goes in. I don't know. I think you might enjoy it. I'll recommend it. Even I don't think you're gonna love it or anything, but it's a good time, I think. Dune is yeah. I was gonna say, is Dune is that like your new favorite movie now? Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought I saw it in your top 4. That's cool, man. That's awesome. I don't know if I'd go as far as to put it in my top 4 of all time, but definitely for the year so far. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I didn't get to see it in IMAX. I'm kind of I wish I did. I tried to book the BFI IMAX, but I mean, that was just like so hard to get into. So much demand for that. Maybe they're still doing it there. Again, I've been so busy with school lately that I haven't really gotten to the cinema very much in the last like week since I've been back. There is one film I did go to see, which I'll get to, but yeah. The infrared camera is so unique, gives a distorted look to it all. Yeah, I think distorted is the word I was looking for. It's very like it's cool to do that for black and white, because when you think of black and white, you normally think of it's used so you can see all the shapes better in a lot of ways. Like even like the little dimples on people's faces, I think, are just more pronounced and visible in black and white. But when you do like black and white infrared, those shapes become a little bit more blurry in a lot of ways, but it's still black and white. So it's a really unique look that I really enjoyed seeing. Spaceman thinks it's profound, but it's really isn't. It's so pretentious. Yeah, again, it's like I might not even mind the execution as much if it had like ideas that weren't just recycled from, like I said, like Solaris or Ad Astra. 2001, not really, but yeah, those other two are definitely seen those movies. It's one of you're like you like it's one of it's like you just roll your eyes with how much it's seen those movies. How many more Netflix movies are going to call Adam Sandler fat? All of them so far. All of them have so far with him in it. I off the top of my head, I know he's done a lot for Netflix, and there's a lot that I haven't seen that I want to see. Like, I really want to see that basketball one that he did. Like, is it Hustle? That one looks cool. In fact, I used to. I'm a fan of the Denver Nuggets, the basketball team, and the guy in that movie, Juancho Hernan Gomez, used to play for the Denver Nuggets. So I've been to a few games and I've watched him play. So I'm curious how he is as an actor. He used to dunk all the time. He used to be like a really good like bench player dunker. I'm down for stupid movies once in a while. I'm gonna start watching the Twilight movies. Yeah, I need to. You know what's funny about the Twilight movies? I have seen one of them. I have seen Breaking Dawn Part 2. When I was a kid, my mom wanted to watch the last Twilight movie. She had seen, you know, all the others, but we hadn't. But she made us watch it, and so we were all like, "What's going on?" But yeah, I want to watch the Twilight movies. Honestly, I think I would actually unironically kind of like the first one, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Let's go back to share screen. Talk about a heavy hitter. Very heavy, very expensive movie this is. It's so funny. This is like, what's the budget for this? I want to say this is like a $200 million movie, which is insane because this is like without a doubt one of the worst looking movies I've seen, not just this year but any year. Yeah, budget 200 million, box office 96 million. So massive bomb. And I think the marketing is a big reason why. And then what did The Beekeeper cost? Because that movie is like another 40 million. Yeah, huge hit. Keep the budgets low. You know, like if you want to do a big spectacle action movie, you don't need to spend $200 million to do it. And I don't know why Matthew Vaughn couldn't figure that out. And David Ayer, the guy who made Suicide Squad, did. Maybe it's because Suicide Squad bombed as hard as it did. But yeah, Argyle, what a movie. I don't even know how much I want to talk about this one, honestly. It's. I think this is probably the worst movie I've seen this year. My review here, when I said it's his Synecdoche, New York, what I mean is it has this really horrible kind of meta aspect to it. And I think, yeah, this is kind of what's annoying about it, is I feel like I can't talk about the movie without, like, I can't talk about different things I hate about it without spoiling it, really. Because this whole meta thing is a huge reason why I hate it. But other than that, it's just, it's got all the kind of annoying tropes that you're used to with Matthew Vaughn. You know, the action is shot very similarly to Kingsman, and it's got a lot of kind of Deadpool, Marvel-y kind of humor that I just don't. I don't know. I hated this. I did not have a good time. It was funny too. I went to I think early this year. A friend of mine and I, we went to see Oppenheimer. They were re-releasing it in IMAX, and I just wanted to go because I wanted to see it at the BFI IMAX in the 70 millimeter, and all of the seats in the IMAX were like decked out in Argyle drip. It was just like the cat with this like checkered background on our seats, and so you know, the spirit of Matthew Vaughn was with us for that watch. Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was awful. Money laundering scheme for sure. Again, like, why do you spend $200 million on that? There's so much better stuff you can do with your money in like January, February, kind of early year releases. Speaking of stuff that came out earlier in the year that I liked better, I'm going to talk about Drive Away Dolls, which I know has like gotten some kind of polarizing reviews. This is directed by Ethan Coen. At least at the moment, the Coen brothers are kind of splitting up. I don't know if there's any tensions between them or anything. Because a couple of years ago, Joel did The Tragedy of Macbeth with Denzel Washington. It's just very funny to see, like, Joel did that movie, this very like serious kind of, you know, arty Macbeth adaptation with great actors like Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand, and Ethan Coen made like a faster Pussycat Kill Kill kind of riff, this female crime caper thing with a couple actresses I thought were really good. I love Margaret Qualley. I think she's one of my favorite kind of young actresses working today, and as well the Geraldine Viswanathan. Yeah, I thought she was really good too. Yeah, this was just really fun. It's basically about these two young lesbian women who are I think one of them just wants to get away just to another state, and they do this like drive away thing where they just take a car that needs to be moved from one state to another and go. But on their way there, they end up with this briefcase that contains something that I won't spoil, and they get caught up in this sort of crime conspiracy thing, and it is really, really funny. I don't know. I just thought their chemistry was great together. It's really short and breezy as well, right? Like it's like how long is it? 84 minutes? Yeah, it is very, very easy to watch, very low commitment. I think that sometimes the humor is a little bit too like self-referential. It's just a little bit like I don't know, like it's some of it I even think is overtly referencing like other Coen Brothers movies. Like the thing that's in the briefcase is like very much a reference to Burn After Reading, which is I think one of the more underrated Coen Brothers movies. I think that's one of their funniest films for sure. Yeah, I think I just enjoyed the pastiche of it too. Like it's a fun, like you definitely see like the Russ Meyer like Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls kind of influence to the comedy in it and everything. Matt Damon, there's a lot of good supporting performances. Matt Damon I think is really funny. Coleman Domingo has this one monologue where he's talking about like what's in the briefcase, and it's just like one of the funniest things I've seen this year. Just the sincerity with which he delivers it. So yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed this more than the Joel Coen Macbeth movie. I think maybe that shows you which Coen, like just kind of which part of their sensibility I prefer. I don't get me wrong, I like their dark side a lot too. And I mean, No Country for Old Men is great, but it's definitely a lesser Coens, but I think it's a good time. And if you like the Coens, especially their sillier works like Burn After Reading, I think you'll probably enjoy this. Madam Web. So this is first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the whole Chris Stuckman thing with Madam Web, because I saw a lot of people in all over YouTube, including a lot of people I'm good friends with and I respect. I'm not saying anything bad about anybody. You're welcome to say whatever you want. I just thought it was odd that so many people were attacking Chris Stuckman for not negatively reviewing Madam Web, because he published a video where I think it was called like I have to talk about this, and it had Madam Web in the thumbnail. And in the video, he talked about how kind of Madam Web was, like he clearly was alluding to the fact that it wasn't a good movie, and that the studio had completely messed it up and kind of put this first-time director in a horrible situation, and you can really tell when you watch it. I think it's just he took kind of like, obviously in the past couple of years, ever since he's kind of started to go in the direction of making movies himself, he has very much approached it from the point of view of somebody who's in the industry and is doing this. And I can understand why he doesn't necessarily want to review movies in the same way. I think he said that he wants his channel to be more kind of film appreciation than film criticism. And even for me, as somebody who's not interested in filmmaking, who is more interested in film criticism, I kind of respect like wanting to have a bit more positive energy, just because there's so much negative, like just going after shit for no reason on YouTube. But I totally understand why people are annoyed by like wanting I think people can be annoyed with this general direction for his channel, but it's like he's not entitled to. I mean, he's not required to just do kind of whatever people want. I think the implication that he that like, oh, like if he only ever reviews movies positively, like how will his audience ever know what movies to go see? And it's like, there's so many people out there you can watch if you want to know whether or not a movie's worth your time. You don't have to. I don't think he has that obligation necessarily. And anyway, that's a bit of like any if you were in my YouTube like family and you had an issue with Chris Stuckman's video, I understand, and you're totally right to do that, and especially for people who go out there and watch bad movies so that they can inform their audience. Like, I respect that, and I do it sometimes. I do it a lot less than I should, but I can understand with them getting annoyed with somebody like Chris Stuckman. But I also think that he's clearly trying to distance himself from film criticism. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think he has the same role that he used to. But so with that huge rant out of the way, that is way more interesting to talk about, the whole Chris Stuckman thing, than Madam Web itself, because it's bad, extremely bad. I mentioned with Argyle kind of being like a money laundering scheme. This is probably even more of a money laundering scheme. I don't know. I don't understand this Sony experiment at all. Like, it's, I mean, other than money, like, I don't understand kind of why these exist. It's a really, really embarrassing script. Not just kind of the logistics of the plot and the setup for everything, but just like certain lines. Like, I think, what's the one I quoted in my review? Yeah, there's somebody like blatantly trying to like copy off of Spider-Man. Like, there's a part where somebody goes, "When you take on the responsibility, great power will come." It's like, I wonder what that's from. Yeah, it's it's the funny thing too is isn't comic book heads out here can correct me, but like, isn't Madam Web supposed to be like an old lady? Like, I remember watching the cartoons from the 90s, and I think she was like much older than Dakota Johnson. So I don't know. This is just a weird cast, and the marketing was kind of fun with her. Like, I don't know. She I remember there's like a promo where she was like saying that you should go see the movie in like this like intentionally sexy voice, and it's like, what is Sony trying to do here? But anyway, all that stuff, around the movie, Chris Stuckman thing, just its existence is more interesting than the movie itself. Like, it is. I can't imagine anybody getting like actual entertainment out of it unless maybe in like a so bad it's good way. But even then, it's like there's not nearly enough, I don't think. But that's just me. On a much more positive end, actually, and this totally surprised me. Lisa Frankenstein. Who's the director? Zelda Williams. I haven't seen anything else that she's done, but I will be watching what she does next, because I thought this was a really fun, cute little pastiche that she does here. There's been so many kind of Frankenstein riffs in the past. I mean, obviously, for a long time, but I mean, even last year there was that one Angry Black Girl and Her Monster movie that ended up on Shudder. And so, yeah, I mean, lots of people have been doing kind of fun stuff with Frankenstein lately, but this one is kind of tonally, it's kind of a blend of like, a like a kind of a teen rom-com sort of thing. It even has Cole Sprouse from, obviously Sweet Life on Deck, or Sweet Life on Deck, well, that too, but Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Yeah, weird to see him in something. And basically, like there's kind of this Frankenstein setup where she ends up resurrecting this guy, and he's like a mute as well. But she kind of like starts training him in a weird way to be her boyfriend, but at the same time, it's like it's at a certain point, like he starts wanting that, but but she's not really. I don't know. She kind of seems like she's a little bit oblivious to the whole situation, which is a really cute dynamic for sure, and they do that well. Trying to remember what else I said in my review. I mean, if you've seen like what's that one, Warm Bodies, if you've seen Warm Bodies, you've pretty much like seen what this is in terms of like the general setup. And but I thought there was something about like it's kind of homage to the horror genre, and kind of the iconography of it that I thought was cool, and that for me it was closer to something like a Tim Burton movie, like even some of his more recent like kind of underrated stuff like Dark Shadows. It was more that than something like Renfield, which I think just sort of like I think Renfield thinks that horror iconography like Dracula is kind of silly, and I definitely don't think Lisa Frankenstein does. Maybe a little bit, but in a loving way. I think it's got a super sweet ending where with the two characters, and I think the ending is really kind of what made me love the film. And at one point, Cole Sprouse, as this Frankenstein character, goes Lorena Bobbitt mode, and I won't tell you what that is. So you're either going to have to know who Lorena Bobbitt is or look it up yourself. Let's go back to the comments for a little bit here. Wow. Okay, we got a lot. I watch the Twilights in higher speed. It's cheating. You gotta watch them at regular speed. Regular speed. Argyle might be the worst movie ever made. It's horse poop. Yeah, it's hard to. I never know how to answer the worst movie ever made question, but I mean, I think it's definitely the worst movie I've seen this year. Yeah, I don't think there's one that I've been just wanting to go Mishima mode to more this year than that one. That film made me feel hopeless for a second. Yeah. I mean, there's been enough good movies that have emerged, even in like the COVID and post-COVID era. I'm not really hopeless for movies anymore, but I get the feeling. I totally get that. But yeah, I'll check out your review because I kind of wish I did, because I wish I had kind of documented my thoughts a little bit more. I don't know if I discussed them in a format like this because again, it's very spoiler heavy. I think to get into why a movie like that doesn't work, I think you need to go into spoilers and yeah. Drive-Away Dolls is real good. Really enjoyed it. Yep, absolutely. I know a couple people in the community. I think Mike from Did You See That? Like, I think he really didn't like it. So there, there's a lot of people I respect and I'm good friends with, and we have similar tastes that haven't really been taken to it very much. So I get that, but I mean, I thought it was really funny. So yeah. Minajul, hey, how's it going, dude? I just saw you on Scott's stream as well. I was in the comments for that. So yeah, I hope you're doing well, man. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. He says, I'm really excited for Alien Romulus. Do you think it'll be a good film or just copy and paste from the original Alien? Really hoping it's great and it delivers. So I need to, so first of all, who's directing that again? Oh, it's Fede Alvarez. That's right. Yeah, who did like the Evil Dead. So if it's anything like the Evil Dead remake, I mean, I'll probably mildly enjoy it at least. I think Evil Dead is a very flawed movie that I'm not huge on, but I still kind of I think it understands how to make a good horror movie. I just don't think it's a good Evil Dead movie. So if he does that, maybe Alien Romulus. Maybe it won't be a great Alien movie, but it could still be a good like sci-fi horror movie in some way. But I don't know. I need to see. So I've seen Alien 1, 2, and 3. Love the first one. Classic 5-star movie. Aliens, I am a little bit lower on than most people, but I still really like. I think it's, you know, very well done movie. It's just, it's not really what I want out of an Alien movie sort of thing. Again, I kind of prefer the horror tone for that. And then Alien 3, I don't love, but I think it's actually kind of underrated. It's, you know, for all the troubles that that movie had, it's still pretty solid. And then I haven't seen Resurrection, which I'm looking forward to, and then Covenant and Prometheus. Yeah, I need to watch those ones especially before Romulus. So yeah, what are your thoughts on those? I need to see those two in particular. What's your thoughts on the new Deadpool Wolverine trailer? Are you looking forward to the film? I don't really like Deadpool very much. I haven't actually seen any of the Wolverine movies. So in that sense, no. I definitely won't be seeing it in theaters, I don't think, but I might catch it on digital. I mean, I definitely need to the Wolverine movies. I need to check out for sure. Like I've heard Logan is incredible, so I definitely, and I'm sure I would like it, to be honest. Have you seen the leaks for Red Hulk in the new Captain America film next year? No, I haven't been following a ton of superhero stuff lately. I think the main thing I would be paying attention to with that is like the new Batman film whenever they're getting on that. But that doesn't even come out until like 2026, right? So, yeah. Madam Web. Classic. Yeah, I definitely, I do kind of get the appeal a little bit of like the so bad it's good. I just don't think there's enough. Like there's some funny lines and there's some funny stuff that happens. And it's just kind of funny how like shameless some of it is. Like the whole like all the Pepsi product placement, especially with like the final fight scene and stuff. It's very funny. But yeah. Not really worth. I don't think it's like on the whole like a great so bad it's good movie. I see Chris Stuckman's videos. Now I'm making a movie. I want to be chummy with directors so I can be a SAG-AFTRA member kind of thing. Okay, that's more. I get it. I in terms of the criticism. If for anybody out there, if that's your issue with it, yeah. Because that is kind of like shameless to kind of use your YouTube channel as a platform to try and, you know, promote your. It's like he's already, you know, he already owes so much of whatever success he's had in the film industry to YouTube. So to kind of, yeah, I mean, it's not like he needs to do a ton more with it. But I also don't think he owes us like negative reviews. And I think anybody who's like, you know, we need him to be honest about everything that he's, you know, I think people are smart enough to make up their own minds, and there's such a market out there for, you know, like actual like film criticism that if, you know, that you can't, it could, like one person will not make a difference. But she's supposed to be an old cat lady. Well, she's one of them. I talked about Madam Web, I think. Yeah. But she's not at all. Like it's such a weird casting decision. Lisa Frankenstein is another great one. Director is Robin Williams' daughter. Oh my god, I didn't notice. That's great though. I mean, I think it is very funny. I don't know what kind of comedy background she has, but clearly she's got some of her humor from her dad. That kind of warms my heart a little bit. That's awesome. Felt very John Waters. I don't know how John. Maybe that didn't come up a ton in my mind, but maybe I'll go back and watch it. I just thought it fit the whole like. Again, I liked the casting of Cole Sprouse because it was like a much nastier version of the of like a Disney teen, you know, sort of like it was kind of spooky movie. But it didn't have to be all like cutesy about it. Again, like it's actually pretty violent when it gets to that stuff. No. Like again, keep commenting because I realize it's been a while and I don't know if a ton of people will show up to the stream. That's fine. But I definitely was fancying a chat with people. So everybody who's watching, please comment. excited for Romulus. Hearing Fadi talk about it has me hyped. Cool. Yeah. Is it bad that I prefer Covenant to the first Alien? No, it's fine. I mean, I haven't seen Covenant, so I can't really talk about that. And I saw your review. I know you're not huge on it. You know, to each their own. I love it, but I get it. Yeah, I'd be down. Shoot me a message. Yeah, I would do that. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the stream. We're still on Lisa Frankenstein. I don't know if I covered my ratings for the review. So The Settlers was a 3, Samsara was a 4, Beekeeper was a 3, Dune 4, Spaceman was a 2, Argyle and Madam Web are both 1s, and then Drive Away Dolls and Lisa Frankenstein were 3s. I'll talk about another 3 for me. This was a really strong 3, though. This was just like I need to watch it again to give it any higher of a rating, but because it just has one of those endings where you're like, oh, like I need to go back and revisit this. It reminded me a little bit of Power of the Dog in that way. But yeah, anyway, so this is Monster, directed by Hirokazu Koreeda, who directed like Shoplifters, I think, and Broker. It's been kind of a festival darling for the past many years, and I this was my first film I had seen from him, but I like him quite a bit. I think he's got kind of he reminds me a little bit of like a modern Ozu, and I don't think he's quite on that level, of course, but at least not from seeing this film. But I think he kind of takes a similar approach to Ozu in terms of kind of drama and staging, and and his focus on families in a lot of ways. But he applies them to kind of like more modern situations. Is what I can gather, certainly from this. I'm not going to spoil where this goes in terms of the relationships in these films and everything, and kind of the dynamic that ends up forming. But it's very, very cool and very kind of not what you would expect, I think, from a film like this. But this kind of, it has almost like, it's similar, it's kind of like a Rashomon setup in a lot of ways, not with the subject matter, just in the template of using multiple perspectives of an objective event. So it basically starts out with like this this kid who is being bullied at school, I think, or he has an issue with a teacher, something like that. And it kind of shows you that event from the mother's point of view, as she's like talking, she's going to parent-teacher counseling events and stuff like that. And it really seems like this school was like really unfair and harsh to this kid. And then it shows you similar events from the teacher's perspective, and all of a sudden you kind of start taking the teacher's side because you sort of see things in a different way. And then in the third kind of section of the film, that's where you really get to see kind of the kids' perspectives. But eventually it becomes less about those events at school and more just about the friendship between these two kids. And again, I think I with the subject matter, I think I want to revisit the film because it kind of, there were a lot of hints to it throughout the film, but it really kind of where it goes in the third act, it really kind of brings it home. So I was like, oh, I have to rewatch this, like, especially those first two earlier sections with this in mind. But yeah, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous movie in terms of the way it looks. And kind of it's yeah, I described it in my review as a puzzle box. It's like that in some ways that was kind of my issue with it. It's just that I feel like you're kind of trying to solve it the whole time, as opposed to like really admire watching it unfold itself for you. But but I have a feeling that if I watched it again, kind of with its structure in mind, that wouldn't really be an issue, and I would really appreciate like watching it take shape. So this was a festival film, but I didn't get to see this at the London Film Festival. So just checked it out on a plane recently, actually, and ended up really enjoying it. So would highly recommend Monster, directed by Hirokazu Koreeda. Ooh, okay. So I'm going to talk about one of my absolute favorite movies of really like the decade, the century. I don't know. This is just amazing. Hundreds of beavers, possibly thousands. The greatest tagline in several years, for sure. And an awesome poster, too. Yeah, really cool poster. So this technically says 2022 on it, because I guess these guys made it a while ago. And sorry. And yeah, like really, so basically, it's like a silent kind of live action Looney Tune in a way of this guy who's like a drunken Applejack salesman. Early in the film, he has this whole musical number where you kind of see his his whole existence at the Applejack kind of brewing place, and after he sort of I forget if the place like floods or what happens, but he's not doing that anymore, and he's kind of out in the wilderness trying to survive, and he has to basically like start from scratch, and eventually he kind of runs into these this guy who's like a fur trader person, and he really wants to and he has like an attractive daughter that he really wants to get with, so he has to like win her father's affections by getting all of these, by trapping all these animals, and eventually he must get hundreds of beavers, literally hundreds of them. And as you can see from kind of this poster here, so it's all of the animals are just like people dressed in like costumes, like these kind of mascot costumes, and it is just the entire film for me is just like one of the most astounding kind of dedications to just the love of filmmaking. It's just people who really, really love physical comedy and storyboarding sequences, and just and doing crazy tricks with the camera on a low budget, and After Effects. Like there's a lot of the film that is basically probably just in After Effects, and and it looks really good too, like certainly for the budget. I think this was like $150,000 or something. Like it's really, really low budget movie, but you never notice it. I mean, you honestly, to the extent that you notice it, it enhances it. It's kind of like, I compared it a little bit to the Wakaliwood films, though it's not that low budget, just in how much fun you can tell everyone is having making it. It's I don't know. It's the entire thing. I mean, I can't compare it to anything else. Even comparing it to like the silent era films, it just doesn't quite do it justice. It's entirely its own atmosphere. I mentioned with kind of how the main character is always like kind of he needs to find like new items for things. I think I think it's very much indebted to video games as well. And there's almost like a Minecraft or kind of, yeah, definitely like a video game feel to watching this character, need new items and stuff like that, or like go to different parts of the map and like, get something that he needs. It definitely has like a video game logic to it. So again, this is definitely its own thing. It's amazing. It is. And please, if you want to watch it, see if you can see it in theaters, or if not, please pay for it on digital. I saw it in a theater. These guys they deserve everybody to go out and support this film. It's so good. So I'm trying to think what else I have to say about it. I don't know. I think it's my favorite film of the year so far. It just really inspired me the most, and it made me laugh for just 100 minutes or however long it is. It was a laugh riot the entire time. So Hundreds of Beavers, can't recommend it enough. What else? I'll talk about something from early in the year, Night Swim, This was a January thing as well. This is our annual Blumhouse January event. Well, last year we had Megan, which I did enjoy, not quite as much as some people did, but I definitely enjoyed it. This one was a big step down from Blumhouse. So this is the Haunted Pool movie, which is such a hilarious and stupid premise. But I was, and I will say the one thing that I kind of liked about the movie is that some of the line delivery where characters are talking about this situation, some of the lines are delivered in a serious enough way that I think that there's kind of entertainment value to be found, just how seriously they're taking something so ridiculous. But at the same time, I think I could picture this movie being made in like the 80s or 90s with a director who really understands camp. Like Brian Usna, I think, could do something really interesting with this premise. Even if it wouldn't be great, I think it would be really entertaining. But it's because like the actual like horror beats of it, it's basically like every Blumhouse like Exorcist ripoff haunted house movie you've ever seen, and the family drama is incredibly basic and boring. So there's not enough to actually be good about it in a serious way, and the stuff that's like campy and the stuff that should be campy and the stuff that's funny isn't funny enough consistently. So it's definitely like a 2-star movie, but I don't know. I don't think it's quite as bad as some people are saying. It's certainly not good. It's I kind of wish, again, I think the material, there's something there which I wouldn't have thought about like Haunted Pool movie before. But again, like it's Brian Usna, some kind of journeyman horror director from the 80s could maybe do something with this, not Blumhouse. But let's see. I'll go to some more comments. Monster is one of my favorite movies of the year. Really beautiful stuff. Yeah, it's so sweet. It's one of the better movies I think I've seen in recent years about childhood friendship, for sure. Yeah, it's and even just like the cinematography in it. Like I think that shot of that burning building has really stuck with me. I think they have it in the trailer, but yeah. Hundreds of Beavers is next on the watch list. I've said a lot about it, and I will probably be talking about it a lot more throughout the year. It's one of those movies I say the title and I just kind of smile a little bit. It's very close to my heart for movies this year. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I wish it would have been better. Again, like could there be like a 3-star 80s 90s movie in there? I think there could be with that premise, but it's certainly not the one that Blumhouse released. Okay, so let's keep going here. Don't have too many more. But I do want to. I'm really glad that I'm getting to talk about all the underrated gems today. So things like Hundreds of Beavers, that are great but haven't gotten that big of a kind of release or attention or whatever. We have to talk about Snack Shack. This is directed by Adam Rehmeyer, who previously directed that movie Dinner in America, that got a lot of festival acclaim a couple years ago. And he also did a horror movie called The Bunny Game, which everyone seems to hate and sounds really, really vile. Yeah, this sounds like some sort of like snuff disaster thing. And I'm like, okay, that's very weird that he made this, because Snack Shack is a really, really charming kind of return to a movie like maybe Adventureland, about like kind of teens that are working shitty summer jobs, and there's just comedy in that alone. But this one has like a really funny twist to it, where these guys growing up in Nebraska are like total hustlers from the age of like 14 to 15. Like they're, especially this guy played by Gabriel LaBelle, who from The Fabelmans, played Sammy Fabelman in that. I was really impressed with his kind of acting turn as, you know, going from the very nice, well-mannered Sammy Fableman to just total like Sigma grindset. Like this guy's going to be working on Wall Street one day, like dirtbag, but like a 15-year-old version of that whose kind of hustle is like, hey, we should start this like snack shack and sell bad food to people by the pool. Over the summer, and like them always getting into like weird trouble and antics, and kind of their parents, you know, kind of looking down on them for that. Of course, it incorporates like the trope of the girl next door, this girl who moves next to our main character for the summer, and kind of both characters are vying for her affections a little bit. So all these things are things you've seen before, absolutely, in movies like this, but it is so well done. Like it has such a good amount of heart and sincerity and kind of genuine cleverness to the way they do like kind of comedy set pieces. I think I was really impressed by, and the other thing is that the third act has this twist to it where I definitely won't spoil it because it's quite shocking when it happens, but it's a big like tonal shift. It like something really kind of tragic happens, and I was so impressed with how well it handled that tone. Because sometimes I think movies that are really goofy like this, and then something like that happens, it can be too jarring. This was not. I think this felt really authentic in kind of how, because it's playing up all this like high school stuff in the background that itself feels authentic, and then just the way that happens, like, and the way that they kind of portray how it kind of brings people closer together, and makes people, you know, like kind of value important relationships in their lives. I thought worked so well, and yeah, it's. Yeah, I was so impressed with this. This was so much fun. So many great gags in it. I don't know how wide of a. I don't think it's gotten much of a theatrical release. I checked it out online, but yeah, I mean, you can definitely stream it right now and everything. So definitely recommend doing that. It's one of my. I mean, other than Hundreds of Beavers, which is kind of like its own thing. This is like my this is definitely my favorite. Like just straight up kind of conventional comedy I've seen, not only this year but probably in like several years. This was just lovely. Yeah. Oh god, this. Oh my god. All right. So for all my cinephiles on the channel, people lovers of classic film, you might be aware of this French movie, The Wages of Fear, directed by Henri Georges Clouzot. It's an absolutely brilliant, you know, thriller from the 50s, about all these people in South America who are kind of very, you know, they're kind of criminal scumbag types, and they're very they're living this kind of like purgatory, very precarious existence in South America, where and then this oil explosion happens, and they have to go get nitroglycerin to you know, put out the oil fire. So they're essentially, you know, doing this kind of grunt work for this company, and it becomes kind of about their, you know, their lives and their very immediate experience of doing that. It's a devastating, super tense movie. I love it, and I also love, honestly, I might like even more William Friedkin's Sorcerer, which is a remake of that, and just kind of takes the same premise but changes a few things, and then just really ramps up that tension. I think Sorcerer has some of the best sort of tension set pieces I've ever seen in any movie. So two really fantastic movies, showing that the premise is timeless enough to remake. You know, multiple movies can do it really well. And then this year we have the direct-to-video trash version of The Wages of Fear, which no one asked for. I the moment I saw the trailer like weeks ago, I just could not contain my laughter. I was like, why'd they make it like the Gerard Butler like version of this? And but it's it's such a strange thing that exists. And it's very, very bad. Like it's I think one of the main things is just that like you notice like certainly if you've seen both Sorcerer and Wages of Fear, but even if you just know good thriller filmmaking, like you see what they're doing with these like truck sequences, these like rickety trucks that have like dynamite in them, and they do so little to like milk that tension, whereas Sorcerer and Wages of Fear, they do so much to do that. I mean, Sorcerer has all these sort of very, very intricately paced sequences of the to really, really put it in your mind that like these trucks could explode at any minute. And like the most way this DTV Wages of Fear does is like they'll show you a wide of the truck and then like they'll cut to a close up of the dynamite inside the truck and that's it. And they just go away from it. Like it's so lazy. Like, oh my God. Oh, I can't believe this. I kind of can believe this exists at the same time. And the character work just sucks. Like I think that's actually a huge thing of what makes especially Wages of Fear work is the character stuff. And it's like they try, this is such a like sanitized version of that. So like I mentioned in both of the original films, all the characters are just kind of like scumbags, like fleeing very precarious circumstances. Sorcerer, the first 30 minutes of it is like different sequences of characters being involved in like crime or political assassinations or whatever, and so you see all this and you kind of understand that these aren't really good people. Like they're you know they're here for a reason. They've kind of dug their own graves in a sense. Whereas this movie is like, this woman here is like, she works for like a generic version of like UNICEF. Like there's like at the beginning of the movie they're trying to like vaccinate kids and stuff. Like they try and like moralize these characters for no reason. Like the story doesn't warrant that. So I don't know. It's maybe the third movie I'll mention on this in this video where I'll say like that's a money laundering scheme. Like I don't know why that exists. Yeah, bizarre movie. Not many people have seen this one. It is on Netflix, so it's very easy to watch, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the remake, the DTV version of Wages of Fear for everybody that wanted it. I'm excited to talk about this one. So I haven't seen Civil War yet because I don't want to see it in theaters. I think it's just a stupid premise, and so I don't. And I didn't like Alex Garland's last movie. I just have no desire to go pay money to see that. I'll catch up with it on digital when it's available in a nice copy. But I bring it up because I think Monkey Man has more on its mind politically than Civil War does, from what I've heard from people that have seen it. So Monkey Man is directed by Dev Patel, who's, you know, of course, a great actor and has done a lot of kind of really varied work in the past, 10 years or so. And so apparently he's just a huge fan of action movies and he's been wanting to make his own kind of ultra-violent actioner. I think he said he was really inspired by The Raid when he made this, and it shows. And yeah, so basically he does this movie about a character in India who's kind of basically he does all these like fights in this really seedy kind of underground scene where he wears a gorilla mask, and then but where essentially he like gets beaten up in a lot of these fights, but then I think he gets a percentage of the bets or something, like basically like people bet on him to lose, and then like he takes a percent. I forget exactly how it is, but there's a lot of kind of like underground crime dealings going on here, and eventually kind of he gets involved in more. I won't spoil exactly how, but he kind of gets involved in working for people in power. And I think the movie is definitely trying to kind of comment a little bit on xenophobia and just extremism in Indian politics. This was actually, funny thing, I think this movie was made like before the pandemic, or at least around the pandemic. And India has elections this year, like they're going on right now. And yeah, it's extremely timely, I think. And I think this movie has a lot more to say about its, politics than from what I've heard from people who have seen Civil War that movie does. So yeah, in terms of the movie itself, I think this is a wonderfully made action movie for the most part. I thought it was really, really, I could definitely tell how inspired by the Raid it was. It's incredibly brutal, and it takes kind of this, like very simple John Wick sort of setup. At one point, they even referenced John Wick verbally, which I thought was a bit much, but still, it's cute to see the references and everything. But yeah, the it's a lot of like gun fu and kind of sort of like neon lit set pieces almost, but a little bit dirtier. It's I think my only real complaint about it was it's his first feature. I think the action is too like kinetic and shaky. Like it's not. I wouldn't call it shaky cam, but it's definitely like too much handheld. There's definitely times where I'm like, I wish I could understand this sequence a little bit better, and things are just moving around a little bit too much for my liking. And like especially for how much of the film the action sequences are shot in like intense close-ups. When you kind of combine close-ups with it's just the camera shaking around all the time, I'm like it gets a little rough for me. But like there's other sequences that are like really well done, and I was kind of shocked by how good it was for Dev Patel for a first feature. So definitely going to be intrigued to see what else he ends up doing next, because this was just a really cool like different like genre pastiche of all the stuff he likes in film, mixed with like interesting like commentary that's actually interesting. It's like it is an exploitation movie in its form, but in that it's both violent and kind of has a genre bend, but it's also kind of not completely tastefully exploiting kind of current events, which I just I thought was cool. I was like, more power to him. I'm going to go back to some more comments. Snack Shack was a little disappointing for me. Okay, yeah. I liked it, but it was very predictable and cliched for me. Dinner in America is better. I've heard that's more of like there's less of a formula to that. I wouldn't call Snack Shack a genre movie, but it's a genre in the sense that like it's like a summer coming of age comedy, and you've seen something like it before, and it's got the structure to it. So I completely get that. I think it's doing something interesting with its structure, and it has a lot of like very specific personality and detail to it that kind of makes it transcend the cliches for me. But I understand being stuck on the cliches with it, and it's kind of like limiting it for you, for sure. Yeah, it is. There's so many like I was shocked by how violent it is too. Like it was for how wide of a release it got. So many people I know went to see it and were like really repulsed by it, and that kind of made me happy. It was like Dev Patel is he's bringing the sauce for sure. I quite like Civil War. It's a lot more simple than I was expecting. So, okay, I'll talk about it a little bit because I haven't seen it, but I've heard from people that it doesn't really get into the politics of it. I might be one of the few people out there that want it to, not in the sense of like I want it to come down on like the left or the right. I don't care about that. But what I mean is you need to get specific about the dystopia that you're setting up. And you really need to like clear up what would actually make people, fight and die, and then like I've heard it doesn't really do that. So one, it's just not very good character building, but it's also it's like I don't need a filmmaker, like I don't want to necessarily the filmmaker to agree with me politically. That certainly doesn't have to be the case, but I want them to like be a crazed maniac and tell me what they think about the situation. I want to feel their convictions, and And if the filmmaker's just like, you know, walking on eggshells, trying to make sure that he doesn't actually say anything to offend people, that's where I'm going to take issue with it. So I wanted it to be political, but it's not. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, like, it's, if you don't say why the war is starting, I mean, we can assume certain things, right? But there's a big difference between like January 6th and a civil war. Like, as somebody who, for my degree, I don't, you know, like, I have studied civil wars for my program. It's by no, conflict is by no means my area of expertise. I'm more do like energy policy and stuff. There are like lots of reasons why that could happen in X country or whatever. And from what I understand, it's not really believable in something like January 6th America sort of thing. So I don't, you know, it's mainly supposed to show the journalist point of view, but yeah, that's what I've heard too, is that it's kind of like, it's kind of has this cop out of like, oh, but it's a journalism movie, but it's like a bad journalism movie. Like, it doesn't actually say anything particularly interesting. It's just like, hey guys, like, journalists are in quite a predicament when they go into battle. It's like, yeah, I think I know that. So. Okay, got a few more here. Thank you guys for sticking with me for this. One of my absolute favorites I've seen this year. This is a very recent watch, and I'd like to do some sort of long form review on this at some point. But this is The Beast, directed by French filmmaker Bertrand Bonello. So this is based off of a novella from Henry James, who, so basically how do I describe this? So the novella is like kind of a period piece in 1903 about this character who has this constant dread that this metaphorical beast is coming for him, like some sort of catastrophic event that's going to ruin his life, and it completely prevents him from pursuing relationships, from sort of things that are going to bring him happiness in the world. And then he becomes an old man, and he realizes that the beast was the fear itself. That's kind of the idea. Is it's like this self-induced like fatalism. That's the novella. It's really short and simple. But what Bertrand Bonello does here is he basically he does that by way of like Cloud Atlas. Like it takes place in like several different, not only time periods, but lifetimes. So to set it up, basically in 2024, AI is kind of taken over, and emotions are essentially a threat. And AIs are trying to kind of get emotional experiences, basically cleanse people of emotional experiences by sort of putting them through them. And so they, Léa Seydoux's character, who I think is wonderful in the film, by the way. This is, I think, my favorite performance from her, and just absolutely one of my favorite performances of the year. She has to go through kind of, she's subjected to an experience from a character in 1910 in France, and she meets George McKay's character there, and they kind of have this like off on like almost romance sort of a thing. That's one sequence, which I won't spoil, and then the second sequence is set in 2014 in LA, and it's the same actors, but they play different characters. So Léa Seydoux is like this model who is working in LA, like house sitting, and George McKay this time, instead of this really nice, like sort of French or English or whatever, like guy that she's courting, he is now basically playing like an Elliot Rodgers type, like incel murderer, where he's like making videos of himself online where he says like stuff that Elliot Rodgers quote like actually said in his videos verbatim. And then the movie in that section kind of becomes like a Brian De Palma or like When a Stranger Calls kind of home invasion thriller. And that section of the movie, I think most people agree, is really strong in how that's kind of set up. And then the AI 2024 section kind of connects all these things. I think I did a good job describing it because it's really, really difficult to do, but it's quite something. So it's clearly taking, I think, pretty blatantly from, like I mentioned, De Palma, also David Lynch. I think I think the whole incel like section kind of takes a lot from Mulholland Drive, and there's a whole section in the third act that is very like Twin Peaks: The Return sort of thing, and it's just, I think, one of the most fascinating, sort of wholly engrossing experiences. I can't even say that I fully understand it at the moment, but I feel like I'm starting to get a much better grip on it in terms of what I think it's about and how Bonello kind of takes the themes of the Henry James novella and ties them into these much more like ambitious, interesting areas of sci-fi and kind of thriller filmmaking. It is just one of the craziest things I've seen this year. It's just incredible. I love Bertrand Bonello. I think his films House of Tolerance and Nocturama are also fantastic. He honestly might be just one of the best filmmakers we have working today. And this is no exception. I think this is one of his best for sure. Yeah, I think what I said in my review in terms of what I like about Bonello is he does a lot of like kind of Nolan style, like non-linear storytelling stuff. But Nolan, I think, often can be, even in movies I really love of his, I think he often can be a little bit too like literal, and kind of he often likes to explain himself when he does stuff with time. Less so nowadays. I think stuff like Dunkirk and Oppenheimer are more seamless, but certainly with stuff like Interstellar or Inception or whatever, he likes to explain himself. Bonello is very, very seamless, and I think because he doesn't like to explain himself, I think he can be challenging. But I think if you really watch his films multiple times and kind of sit with them for a bit, I think they're really, really rewarding. So yeah, The Beast. This is a fantastic, fantastic French movie. Would highly recommend. This was the 5 for me. This was one of the only other one I've given out so far is Hundreds of Beavers. So those two are my favorites of the year so far. Let's talk about a very mainstream horror release, and that is Immaculate, starring the great Sydney Sweeney. This is directed by Michael Mohan. I forget how you pronounce this. Who also directed that movie The Voyeurs with Sydney Sweeney. So he's got kind of a I kind of like this guy's sensibility of like very, very trashy genre pastiches. But yeah, this is essentially has an opening sequence with where you see something very, very terrifying happen to this nun in a convent in Italy in the 1700s, 1800s, whenever. And then, centuries later, you see this girl Cecilia go to the same convent and kind of want to restart her life there a little bit. And the convent's kind of suspicious of her, and they're not really super nice to her or anything. And she, I don't know if I'll spoil the kind of inciting incident, but it's kind of clear in the title a little bit. I could say it. I don't think it's a huge spoiler. She basically becomes pregnant shortly after arriving there, and they kind of declare it a miracle because she's never had sex. And but the thing is, it kind of at that point it kind of lots of more sinister things start to happen, and you start to go like, okay, this convent, they're planning something for her. I think my big struggle with the film is just that it really, like, way more so than any of the other movies I've had this criticism for, like The Beast, but like this wears its influence on his sleeve. This wears its influences on its sleeve so much. It's just like a smorgasbord of Suspiria, The Devils. Even there's a couple sequences that reminded me of Vanishing. And the big one is Rosemary's Baby. Like this is literally just Rosemary's Baby, in terms of like the drama of it. You know, but you don't really get a lot of like what makes those films as engaging and as shocking as they are. But it is really, you know, it like the third act especially, like it's a full on like nunsploitation horror movie, super violent. Like the that last like section is just, it was definitely designed to like kind of divide the audience, I think, and I think I really appreciated that about it. And you know, all of it's helped by the fact that Sydney Sweeney is really dedicated to the performance. She really believes in the pastiche that they're doing, and she goes for it. Like it is a great horror movie performance. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it, even if I kind of like struggled with the lack of original ideas here for sure. You know, it's worth your time. It's certainly a visceral, pretty fun horror movie. Two more here. One of them is a movie called Humane, which I watched the other day. This is directed by somebody who I actually didn't know existed until a couple days ago, Caitlin Cronenberg. So this is daughter of David Cronenberg, sister of Brandon Cronenberg. They're making an entire family of horror sci-fi filmmakers here. So I wanted to see this one because of the Cronenberg name, and also because I really like the premise. Basically what this is in the near future, when climate change has become a big, you know, kind of environmental degradation has become a really big problem for humanity. Basically, countries, I forget if they say where it's set. I'm going to guess it's either the US or Canada based on the setting. The countries have set like a quota of for their populations. Essentially, like they need to immediately shed like 20% of their population. So they create this program where people are just euthanized. It's very much like Logan's Run, actually, in that premise. A little bit. It's kind of, or like Soylent Green. It's kind of a mix of those two in some ways. And so I think basically how it works is like it's voluntary. That's how they start it, is it's voluntary. But if they don't meet their quotas, then like they have to like do a draft and basically like force people to enlist and you know, and die for for the country. It's a great premise, actually. I think that's a fantastic kind of existential sci-fi premise. I just hate the way it's executed. It becomes like, so basically this guy who's like a rich, like kind of newsman, like he announces to his kind of spoiled brat kids that are all grown up now that he's going to enlist, and so the whole process starts, and eventually the people that arrive from the government to take him, I won't spoil too much of where it goes, but there maybe some other people are going to get taken too, and that's kind of the drama of it. It's so like, yeah, like Glass Onion or The Menu. It just becomes this like really shallow eat the rich satire, and for how interesting and existential the premise is, like the setup, that's just such a boring way to take it, you know. I don't like, and the execution isn't there either. Like the actors I found really kind of just grating and just not very good in their performances. Yeah. I and towards the end, like, and you also want to watch it because you're like, oh, like it's a Cronenberg movie, so it's probably going to get really nasty. I think Brandon Cronenberg, you know, like, but all his movies that I've seen have some pretty nasty stuff in them, and this does kind of towards the end, but you're so disengaged by that point that it doesn't really matter. I think even though Brandon Cronenberg kind of has similar kind of pretensions in his early films, especially in Infinity Pool, I still appreciate that, like, even though he kind of is trying to do these like grandiose social commentaries, like they're nasty, and they're also, Infinity Pool is very like psychologically in tune with its protagonist. It even, you know, it might think he's a piece of shit loser, but it sympathizes with him enough for the movie to work. And this doesn't at all. This is just like treats the characters like they don't matter at all. And so you don't care about anybody. So yeah, in that sense, I kind of compared it to Saltburn, I think, a little bit. So not really worth your time, I don't think. But I was like, oh, there's something here. There's an awesome premise, and it's a Cronenberg, and it wasn't good. So I was disappointed, but I don't know. I hope she makes something better in the future. And the last film I'm going to talk about here is my buddy Leon. I think this is his favorite film of the year so far, which is Challengers, the latest from Luca Guadagnino. So Luca. So I have a weird relationship with his films. I think they're all kind of, I score them all kind of the same. I think the first one I saw was actually his Suspiria remake, which I think is not nearly as good as the original, but is ambitious and different and nasty enough that I kind of appreciated it. Yeah, no, I definitely and kind of same with Bones and All. I think was a there were elements of it that I liked for sure, but on the whole, it wasn't really grabbing me. And I had similar issues with Call Me by Your Name as well, which I think is a really, really like kind of well done atmosphere movie, but I just don't connect to the characters very much. That's kind of where I'm at with Challengers. Is kind of, I think that I think the setup is really fun. Of like this kind of, it's like a tennis sports drama, but through the lens of like this like thruple, like white boy summer, like sort of fantasy that he's doing, which could be like super, super campy. But I was a bit disappointed that it really wasn't in terms of like its execution. I think it's much, it takes itself like, I think it really kind of relies on the central character drama. I think it relies on the fact that you're supposed to kind of really understand how these characters feel about each other, and especially the ending, which I definitely won't spoil. The last shot kind of really emphasizes the relationship between the two guys in the film, and I think it's implying something that it doesn't really back up in the rest of the film. I think there's a lot more work needed to be done in order to earn an ending like that. It's not really doing it for me. I think Luca's just much more interested in, aesthetic than he is in either themes or kind of characters. And that's fine when you make something that is more of a vibe. I think Bones and All is more of a vibe, and it kind of works in that way a little bit better than this does. It's too long, but it works a little bit better. But this is kind of like trying to be this very like, it reminded me a little bit of Oppenheimer in kind of the non-linear character drama stuff, and like it really is like this epic, in a lot of ways. It's a super fast movie, it's just, I don't know. I think kind of trying to do that when you're not really great at writing characters is trouble. And even some of the way that he paces some of the tennis sequences, they're very cinematic. Like he's very good at finding new ways to shoot it. But then there's times towards the end where there's a lot of like slow motion on kind of the, but when characters are getting ready for a shot and everything. And that's cool, but at the same time, the drama of the scene is so straightforward. It's so like obvious, and it's like, I don't really need you to emphasize that by making the style so much slower. So I definitely wanted to like this a lot more than I did. But that being said, it's still a good time. Like I see why a lot of people are really taking to this. So for me, it's a little overrated, but it's not it's certainly not bad. I really, you know, I still enjoyed it. I still gave it 3 stars for sure. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have been watching this year in terms of new releases. So I will go through some more comments and then we'll wrap it up here. Quite like the film, but the flaws are opaque. I think this is when we were talking about Civil War. Yeah. Yep, for sure. Immaculate kind of rules. It's very ridiculous, if I dig it. It's not. I don't even know how ridiculous it is. I mean, it's the kind of the pastiche of it is ridiculous. Like the whole nunsploitation thing. Like there's not a ton of movies that do that and play it very straight. The Devils is really the only one I can think of that does, and that's not really even a nunsploitation movie. That's just like a historical drama. But also kind of a horror movie, just because of how horrific what happens is. Yeah, no, yeah, I don't know. I thought it really kind of earns where it goes by the end. Yeah, I don't even know. I didn't even read it that way, but I did kind of like towards the end. I kind of thought I definitely see what you mean. I mean, it's definitely like religious people are trying to like take over, are like trying to basically take away this person's bodily autonomy. I really like the idea of taking that into a horror movie, but they did it in a way that I thought was pretty tasteful in how you know, it's not like clumsy with its social commentary. Like people can watch this and not even necessarily read into it that way. But it's definitely there. It's like undoubtedly the intention for sure. Challengers is so fun to me. Editing it to be like a tennis match is something I admire. Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely has like this sort of back and forth, like it's constantly bouncing off each other. Actually, I compared it to Oppenheimer. It's like, I think that movie is edited like a chain reaction where things constantly feed off each other. This was similar, like to be like a tennis match. Yeah, score is awesome. Like no complaints about the score. Love Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Yeah, that's a stream. Thank you guys so much for watching. Yeah, I'd love to do another stream soon. Yeah, maybe with Josh or Leon or whoever. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.